Welcome to Wiz's Supercoach for the first time. My name's Wiz. It's a nickname I got when I was younger. Don't think it really suits me, but I used to be called the Wizard on the Wing. I'll take it. Uh, I know I've left my run late. It's only a couple of days before the season starts, but I just wanted to get amongst it. I've been watching Supercoach YouTubers for a couple of years, and I thought, well, that'd be interesting to do. And the other reason is because I do a podcast with a mate. It's more of a general footy podcast. It's called Seven Nuffs and a Serious, so subscribe to that. Um, but yeah, I think my co-host is getting sick of me trying to shoehorn in Supercoach segments, and so this can become my outlet instead. I've never finished in the top 1,000, but I do think I'm fairly decent at Supercoach because I manage to make really good predictions each year and not follow them myself. Like, I don't follow my gut, and so it never helps me out, but I do make the predictions and they do come true. So if you follow along for the year, I guess you'll see if they're going to come true again. I'm not interested in subscribers and stuff. I'm just wanting to do it myself and, use it as a bit of an outlet. So see what happens. Hopefully you'll learn something from it. So I'll start with my team, obviously, and we'll go from the forward line because everyone seems to go from defence. F1, Josh Dunkley, lock him in. He could be anything. He could be the top scorer for the year in the whole league. I don't know. But he's going to be up there, barring injury. He's gone up to Brisbane and doesn't have to compete with the Bulldogs midfielders anymore. Going to be the main extractor, you'd think. Yeah, he's got Lockie Neal to complement him. I don't think that those two are going to steal points off each other. If anything, I think the two of them are going to be stronger having each other. So yeah, not too much to say about him. If you're serious about Supercoach, lock him in. F2 was originally going to be Cogs. I was on him all pre-season because he was going to have the full midfield role now. And because Leon Cameron is gone, the biggest nuffy coach of all time, apart from Bevo. But in the end, I went Rosie because he's cheaper. And I didn't want to rely on Cogs with his injury history. Like, he gets knocks all the time, and I don't know. I just had a bad feeling in the end. And maybe I was just biased against Rosie because I'm such a Crom Nuffy supporter, as you can see by my Guernsey. But yeah, Rosie at that price is an absolute value pick, I think. He's got the midfield time now. Once he got thrown in the midfield last year, he went absolutely nuts. Ken Hinkley is another Nuffy coach, in my opinion, but he is trying to hold on to his job, so you'd think he'd be playing players in their best positions. So I'm willing to back in Rosie. Can't really lose. And then F3, you probably guessed it, is Taranto. Everyone's got him. He was one that I wasn't having in my team for the whole preseason. I just didn't trust his body or his disposal efficiency, but I watched the practice game. He looked really good. Prestia got injured again, so Taranto is going to be the main man. Hopper will probably end up injured at some point. So if Taranto can stay fit, he should go 100 plus, which is pretty damn good for that price. Now F4 is an interesting one, I think. It's Nat Fife, and he's another one that I didn't want anything to do with until I noticed his fixture for the first 5 rounds. Now, before I get into that, he looked really good in the practice games. He slimmed down. He's another one that if his body can hold up, he should be okay. There's always that risk. You don't win 2 Brownlows by accident. Like, the ball is going to find him. He's going to find the ball. Fremantle are going to look to use him as a target. And if you factor that into the soft run to begin with, I've got St Kilda first up, North Melbourne, West Coast, Crom, and then the Suns. You'd be expecting 5 wins there. And if they're going to win like that, Fife's going to play a pretty important part, you would think. So I'm willing to back him in and then maybe I don't know, punt him at round 6 or 7 or something like that. I think with him, it's just going to be a matter of when to jump off. But yeah, I'm pretty bullish on him. I think that he'll average probably 100 over the first 5 rounds, 100 plus. Now that I'm putting these predictions out there in a public forum, they're probably all going to stop coming true. But oh well. So F5 is a guy that wasn't in my team either until last night. Tanner Bruhn, I had to swap most of my team around to get him because I wanted to get off of Callahan. I just don't trust Callahan. His wing roll, he scored really good in the practice match, but I think he got 2 goals and the opposition kept kicking the ball to him, especially in the first half. And that's not going to happen every week. So at his price, he'd have to make, to get his 150k, he's going to have to score fairly well. And I just don't see it happening. He doesn't have the scoring history. Now, Bruhn doesn't have the history either. In fact, he's probably got even worse scores over the stretch. But he's got the role. He's going to be playing inside mid for Geelong, it looks like. Some people still think he's not best 22, but if you watch the practice game, I don't see how Scott can leave him out. And if he does play, yeah, he's going to be getting the CBAs, so we know that's important. I'm willing to back him in. That could still change though, pending selection and the fact that I get paranoid and change my teams 100 times a night. But no, this one seems pretty settled, so F6 is Ned Flanders, Sam Flanders. Now he's another one, a little bit like Callahan. He doesn't quite have the role, but he doesn't seem to need it. So he's putting up the massive numbers in the VFL last year, and he plays that high half forward role for Gold Coast. And people were saying that Tuke Miller, when he comes back, Flanders is going to drop off. I don't think so, because obviously Miller doesn't play half forward. It's not like Flanders is getting that many CBAs anyway. He just pushes up and plays like the extra midfielder at a stoppage. And it's usually the sign of weaker teams that their half forwards push up as extra midfielders. So I think Flanders will be doing that most weeks. And he's obviously a beast at finding the pill. So like Fife, I'm just going to back him in. Now, F7, I've got McLean. I've got doubts on him as well. I got doubts on everyone, to be honest. There's not many locks, apart from like Dunkley and a few others. McLean's got Bevo as a coach, so there's one downside with the Bevo salad. And Bevo is definitely the most nuffy coach. He's got a fairly decent scoring history, though, and you'd think Bevo will back him in. He held on to him so long when he was injured, so he obviously sees something in him. Just hope he's not going to be a sub-risk. And I wouldn't read too much into the practice match when he wasn't, he didn't set the world on fire, but the role and job security is more what I'm looking for here. And given that there's not many other rookies to choose from, kind of left with him. Was also thinking of Radaglia, but I just can't see him scoring very well. And Geelong's got some players to come back, probably kick him out the team. I feel like he's just one bad game away from getting dropped. But he does offer that link to the ruck, so that would have been good if a ruck goes down. But it's okay. I'm willing to roll the dice there as well. And then F8, Fergus Green, 45% of teams, lock him in. Hopefully he keeps his position once Lewis comes back. I think he will, because he's more of the third tool, not the main guy. Kicked a shitload of goals last year in the VFL. Hawthorn's not going to be very good, but as I said with McLean, there's not many rookies to choose from up forward, so he's going to get the gig anyway. I'll just keep him on the bench, hopefully. So I'm not going to reveal my R1 until last, I think, because he's somewhat of a pod. But R2 is Marshall. Everyone's got him. 54% of teams. Don't need to say much. without Paddy Ryder, he's looked really good in the past. No Ryder, there's no other rucks to even speak of at Saints anymore. They've got all the injuries and stuff. He looked really good in the Pracky game, so got to lock him in at that price. He's got a massive ceiling too. He's shown in the past. I think a couple of years ago, he went absolutely crazy for a stretch there. So, and that burnt me because I didn't have him then. And then R3, Madden. I'm running the loophole using Madden. I just think that the points you'll gain from running the loophole is going to outweigh having, say, a Samson Ryan or, I forget his name, the guy from Sydney who looks like he's not going to score but might play. Yeah, I could be wrong there, but that's how I see it. So M1 is Rory Laird. Again, not because I'm a Crom Nuffy. I just think he's super consistent since moving to the midfield. Well, he was consistent at halfback, but I mean in terms of Supercoach scoring. He's basically untaggable. Teams tried to tag him last year, and it didn't stop him. And if he's not getting the ball, he just starts tackling like a madman. Same as Sam Berry. Berry had the most tackles in the AFL last year. I think Crows put a real emphasis on tackling now. And Berry was actually one that was in my team for most of the pre-season, but he was eventually squeezed out due to the structure. Maybe he's one for next year, but I have a bad feeling that he's going to go absolutely nuts this year. But yeah, lock in Laird. He's not going to drop much in price. He didn't drop much last year. I think he dropped down like $9,000 or something. So if you don't get him now, it's going to be pretty hard. My M2 up until last night was Clary, but I had to get rid of him so I could go from Callahan to Broon. I wasn't too happy about it, but the guy I picked, Lockie Neal, he's pretty safe. He always starts the season on fire. He's got Dunkley helping him out. Be interesting to see if Port try and tag him again in round one. We saw in the past they've used some interesting tactics on him, and that backfired big time. So yeah, hopefully he goes nuts in round one. I don't think he's going to drop off. I know midfielders generally start to taper off a little bit once they hit 30, but yeah, he's a rare player, so I'll lock him in for now. So M3, Bont, pretty obvious one. Dunkley gone, more midfield time. Bulldogs have fixed up their forward line issues with the tools, so he doesn't have to go play that hybrid key position forward anymore. He's another one. He's a contender for highest scorer in the league, I think. I'd say Dunkley, Bont, Laird, Neal, and Oliver would be the 5. So, yeah, most serious Supercoaches I've seen, in fact, probably all of them have him. So not much to say there. M4 is another obvious one. Tom Green. He looked like he was going to break out last year, started the season really good, and I thought, shit, I've missed out here. But then he really tapered off towards the end of the year. I guess it didn't help that Nuffy Leon Cameron was playing him in the ruck and stupid things like that. But he's gone now, so I think another pre-season under his belt, Green's going to be a pretty good pick. Looks prime for a breakout. Wouldn't read too much into the 50 disposals he had in the intra-club because it's basically against the reserves. But yeah, he's going to be getting massive CBAs. And he's just a pig in there. He reminds me a little bit of Clary when he first started. But yeah, lock him in. And then another obvious one, Hopper M5. I've got my doubts on him. I don't trust his body at all. He's got a pretty injury-riddled history. But you don't get players with that scoring ability at this price if they've not been injured. So there's that. He's going to be one of the 2 main men in Richmond's midfield. I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing, but he didn't look very good in the practice match, yet he still scored okay for that price. So you can either look at it as, oh no, he's not moving very well, he may be carrying something already, or you can look at the positive, he's not moving very well and he still scored decent. And so many people have him, so you wouldn't really want to get left behind on that one. I don't think he's going to score big enough that he could, wreck your season or something, but it's probably too much value at that price. He's worth the risk, so I'll go with him as well. M6, yet another obvious one. Will Ashcroft has to win the Rising Star, surely. I don't see anyone so far that's going to challenge him. It's his to lose. The only way I can see him losing it is if a Nick Martin type from last year bobs up out of nowhere and takes it off him. But yeah, he's going to be Brisbane's fourth midfielder, it looks like. Plenty of CBAs, gets around the ground, kid's a jet. I actually think he's better than Dacos. Unpopular, but I think Dacos is slightly overrated. He seems like a bit of a seagull. He's got good disposal, but if you're going to be rated as highly as him, you've got to be able to get some contested ball and stuff. So yeah, I think Ashcroft's better. Whether that translates to better Supercoach scoring in his first year, I'm not sure. But he'll definitely make enough that he's going to be a success. He'll make the 150k easy. So my M7 is Mackenzie. He's a guy that wasn't even on my radar through the preseason, not at that price. And then I saw the practice game, and he looked really good. You can't ignore a player scoring that much. I just am a bit put off by the Josh Ward thing last year. He and Connor McDonald burnt me big time. I held on to them for way too long. I couldn't get rid of McDonald because of his shitty price. But Mackenzie looks a different player, and there's no O'Meara or Titch in the midfield anymore, so they're not going to be competing with them for midfield time. I think Mackenzie will be fine, hopefully. And then my M8 was my M9 for a long time, but as I said, I didn't want to put Callaghan in, so... And Callaghan was in this weird position where I could have gone up, but there was no one to go to. I couldn't get to Bruin directly from Callaghan, so it was either have money sitting in the bank or move a couple of things around. So yeah, Will Phillips, M8, he should be okay. He's another one in the practice game. He looked okay, I guess, but his disposal efficiency was disgusting, and he looked pretty quiet. He didn't get too much of it. But then his score for what he actually did wasn't too bad, so there's a positive way of looking at it. If he just hits some targets, he should score more than enough to make his 150k. Just a bit worried that he might be a sub-risk though. Clarko likes to pull all kinds of tricks. And he's not the biggest fan of rebuilds apparently. But yeah, you'd have to back in a draft pick like that. So I'm willing to pull the trigger there. Now on the bench, got Baker. I actually had him in all preseason. As soon as Supercoach opened, I had him in. And then seeing the preseason game really cemented him. Started to get a little bit worried with things I was hearing, and it didn't look like he was going to even play that game, and then he just went crazy. So you'd think he has to be picked, although if any nuffy coach is going to leave him out, it's Bevo. Now I got also on the bench Davey. He gives me that link, the midfield forward link, which is really important. Not expecting him to score a ton, but there's not much else to choose from. It's more out of necessity than anything. And speaking of necessity, the next guy, Chesser, he's more a pick of necessity than anything else. He gives me the link between defense and midfield. I'm not keen on his scoring ability or anything, but again, there's just not much out there, and the rookies dictate what you do, so I don't know. He's coming back off injury, so he might improve as the season goes on a bit. He might be a bit of a slow burn, but for now, he just fits, so I'll take him. I'm not wild about it though. So now in defense, my D1 is Doherty. Now, pretty much all preseason it was Dawson, but I think Doherty's going to start on fire. We know that when he gets the midfield time, he scores really well, and Walsh isn't going to be playing the first round or two. I think he said he was aiming to get back for round 1, but it doesn't seem realistic at all. So, yeah, I've gone Doherty because I just don't want to miss out. I think he'll be harder to get. Dawson was in there all preseason, but he's probably going to cop tags, and I think he can break them. Like, he doesn't really have any really low games, but he's going to inevitably throw out like an 80 or something, and I think you'll be able to get him for around 550 eventually. And that 50 grand right now would be really handy. Now, D2, I'll come back to at the end because that's my biggest pod pick. We'll jump straight to D3, and it's Yo. Again, I have my reservations because poor injury history. The guy seems to be made of paper. But there's no denying that he can score really well. And he's got North Melbourne first up. So I think that will go a long way towards a good start, make some money. Again, the risk there doesn't outweigh the possible gains. So have to back him in, not get left behind. Everyone else is picking him, so if we go down, we all go down together. But yeah, I wouldn't be starting him as D2 or anything like that. Although when you see who my D2 is, you may be calling me a nuffy and saying I'm a hypocrite, so maybe just hold off. D4 is Crozier. It was Liam Jones, and especially after seeing Jones in the practice game, I was real keen on him. But I think Crozier is best 22. Seems like Bevo has wanted to play him when he's healthy, and his scoring is much more consistent. Jones has a bigger ceiling, but he's either going to trot out like a 20 or 140. I'd rather just the consistent 70 to 80 from Crozier. It depends what you're going for, I guess. Like, if you're going for overall, Jones could be better. I don't know. If you're playing for the league, you don't want those 20s or 40s on the field. So, yeah, I don't know. Crozier's finger injury didn't look that... No, it looked bad, but I don't think it's going to keep him out or anything. So, if he's named, I'll go with him. If not, I'll find a way to get to Jones. And the Bulldogs really like to play that possession footy down back, so Crozier is going to get a lot of it if he plays. And he can take a good contested mark too. I don't know if anyone remembers that massive hanger he took years ago. I don't think he's capable of them anymore too much. His body probably won't allow him. So I got Jimby at D5. 63%. Everyone's got Jimby. Looks like a beast. He looked like just a tank against the Crom. Laid a huge bump. Don't know about his scoring history. Like, I've heard that he didn't score very well in juniors at all. But once you get into the AFL system and you're surrounded by quality players, and I mean, I know West Coast isn't a top team, but AFL quality is a step above. If you fit into the structure well, it opens up all kinds of avenues to find in the footy. Some players play better in good teams. And yeah, the West Coast aren't a good team by AFL standard, but the ball's going to be down their heat, so I think he's got plenty of opportunity to find the ball. And Simpson's obviously serious about the rebuild, so he'll give him every opportunity. D6 is Constable. Another one that I'm a little bit shaky on, but out of necessity. There's not really any rookies out there. He's going to be, looks like he's going to be taking kick-ins. He's got that half-back role at least until Weller and I think Powell come back. Hopefully he keeps it after that. Who knows? Hopefully he can make the money before they come back. You're probably sensing a theme through this team that I'm not sold on all of my players. It's because I'm not. There's probably only a few in the team, maybe 5 or 6 that I'm absolutely sold on. The rest is just out of necessity, really. Just the best pick of a bad bunch. Or not that they're bad, just you can't bank on anything. Like, if you think back to every preseason, everyone makes predictions. We all think we know what's going to happen and stuff, and then crazy stuff happens. Like, no one predicted Collingwood to shoot up the ladder last year. Nobody predicted Tex to come out at the start of 2021 and go crazy. No one would have predicted Sicily to be D2 and average 113 last year. So, you got to go with relative safety to begin with, I think. So, moving on. Defensive bench. I've got Wilmot. I've forgotten how to spell, apparently. Fat fingers. So, I'm not going with McKenna. Brisbane obviously have massive faith in Wilmot. They played him in the finals. I don't think he's going to score a ton, but at that price, you don't really need him to. I just don't think McKenna is going to have the impact that people think. He didn't look very good in the practice games. And I think he's a massive sub risk. Like, if you think of a sub, you want some run at the end of a game. Who better than McKenna? Like, the guy's a speedster. But he's not the most reliable kicker or anything, so yeah, I think he's more likely to be the sub than Wilmot. Could be wrong. Wait and see for selections. And if not, I'll just have to shuffle it around a bit. And this team actually leaves me with 0, like perfectly 0 in the bank. You'll see at the end, so I'm taking that as a sign. So rounding out the bench is Cowan. He's been announced he's going to play his first game of round 1, so you'd think Chin Cotter, I think that's how you say it. I think he's going to miss out. It was always going to be a case of which one of those two was named round 1 was the one I was going to pick. I was hoping for Chin Cotter because he's 15k cheaper, which would be somewhat useful. But that's okay, we'll take it. I don't think Cowan's going to score a hell of a lot either. But at that price, again, like Wilmot, you don't really need him to pump out huge scores. You just want consistency. If he can get like the odd 80 or something, I'll be stoked. So now at the end, we have the 2 pods. Start with the ruck because he's less of a pod. I was completely off this dude. I didn't want nothing to do with him as a pick, even though I've picked him every year before for probably the last 5 years. It's Max Gawn. I didn't know what him and Grundy would look like together. Like, it was obviously going to be good, but I didn't know if that would translate to Supercoach. Judging by the weekend, it looks like it will. And I think people are forgetting about Max Gawn, that he's kind of like Fife in that a player of that quality, he's just going to find it. Melbourne are going to look to give him the ball. He takes intercept marks. He kicks goals for a ruckman. He doesn't have to... It looks like he's going to kick more goals this year too, but he doesn't have to rely on just hit-outs like a Wits or whatever to get his points. So I can still see him going 110-ish. And I'm happy to just pay the 622. Like, I don't want any of this uncertainty in the ruck and be stressing about that and trying to fix it up later. It could all blow up in my face, but I think it's a good pick. Otherwise, I wouldn't be picking him. I'm trying to follow my gut, so wait and see. We know in the past that people have doubted him and he's come out and absolutely burnt them, so just try to remember that. Now, my biggest pod is my D2. You're all going to laugh at me. I had him in and out, and then I watched Hippo's rant, and it convinced me. It's Jeremy McGovern. I'm actually so bullish on him that I'm going to give him the VC in round 1. If you saw what Jones was able to dish up against the Kangaroos, well, McGovern's a far better player than Jones. And if North are just going to bomb the ball in there all day, up high to inexperienced forwards, Larky's okay, but Jones gave him a bath. I think McGovern's just going to absolutely destroy them. He'll go 150 plus in round 1. That's not the only reason I'm picking him or anything, but I know one round doesn't make it, but I think it'll give him a good head start. The ball's going to be down there heaps. West Coast are crap. If he can just stay injury-free for maybe 10 weeks or something, it's going to look like a pretty good pick. And I know that people say if you're picking someone at that price, they need to be a keeper. I don't really agree. If you've ever seen the articles run where they show the perfect team that you could have had for the year, like the perfect team possible, and when to trade out what players, I think McGovern's going to be one of those, and a bit like a Fife. Like, if you get him and he starts off really well, and then you just pick the right time to punt him, it could go a long way. So I'm going to back him in. I know he's never averaged over 100, but this whole season is about me trying to go with my gut. And if it backfires in the end, I can hack it because at least it was my choice. I wasn't swayed so much this year by top super coaches and stuff. Like last year, I got tricked into picking Whitfield and stuff. I didn't want to, but I thought I was missing out. I just get like a severe case of FOMO. So I'm not going to make that mistake this year, hopefully. Team could change between now and Thursday night. Hopefully not. It's pretty settled. Bar a couple of changes, it's been settled for a couple of weeks. So normally that's not the case with me. So I think that's a good sign. And yeah, if you look there, 0 remaining salary. I'm taking it as a sign. Some people say it's bad to have absolutely no money. You can't go up. But yeah, I've got backup plans. Like if certain rookies aren't named or whatever, I can always switch things around and get them in. So thanks for watching. It's my first attempt at it. I'm sure it'll get better. But if you made it this far, thanks heaps. Good luck in the season. And hopefully we have good news after round 1. See ya.